one is for the outreach committee, and I think all of us are on the outreach committee. It doesn't really matter. Any trustee here can vote. So welcome, everybody. I appreciate you coming. I think everybody looked at hopefully at the November minutes. I looked at them. They all look fine to me. Can I have a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
We approve.
Okay. Suzanne moves. I need a second. Phil, you want a second?
I second.
There you go. Phil second. And all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, there you go. All right, thank you. The other thing is the quarterly programming events. You want to take that, Jessica? I looked at them, the ones you sent, and they look exciting. So
yeah. I'm gonna share my screen, and then I'll start off talking, and then Erin can jump in with anything she would like to share as well. And of course, these are just draft. So any comments, questions, feedback, anything you all want to add to this, just let us know. I'm taking notes as we go along. Share my screen and talking points. Can everyone see the talking points? I'll make them bigger in just a sec.
Yes.
No, they're fine.
Yeah.
I'm gonna make them just a little bigger just in case. There we go. So the first talking point is actually a double up. We have two tech updates, and we thought we would just kind of bundle them together, just to make it a little easier. So the first is that today we are starting the launch of our pilot program where we're checking out Chromebooks to the public for use at home. You know, when we've been open to the public, people can come in and use our PCs, and that's been great. But for a while now, we've been trying to find a way to circulate laptops to people who might need it for a longer period of time. When we reopened for express services, people could only come in for a half an hour. That's just not long enough for people who might be trying to file a job application or get state aid or anything like that. So this program was developed by our library IT crew, and each branch is receiving, I think it's 4 Chromebooks to start. So Centerville, George Mason, Reston, and Sherwood. And they go home with people for 2 weeks. And we're hoping that that's a long enough block of time that they can really get some good work done with it. The devices all have Google Suite on them so that you can get some basic stuff done. But a Chromebook is really, it's like the internet wrapped in a laptop. There's not a lot of stuff there that can be messed up. So when it comes back to the library, we're able to fairly easily wipe the whole thing clean. So not just like physically wipe, we'll do that too, but technologically wipe the whole thing clean so that it's nice and fresh and ready to go for whoever the next person is. Erin, am I missing anything on the Chromebook checkouts?
No, I would say, so we announced that at about 9 this morning, and it has been one of our most popular social media posts in a while. It was retweeted by one of the ABC 7 reporters. So that's exciting. She has a wide reach. She thought it was very positive. She thought it was a great initiative.
Absolutely.
I have a question.
Absolutely.
Our books are physically quarantined for a couple weeks. Are we going to have to do the same thing with this? Or no, you're able to actually turn it right around?
Yes. So with the physical books, we're not cleaning them when they come in. We've never cleaned every book as it comes in, but with these ones, we'll actually be physically cleaning them and wiping them off. So they'll sit for a little bit, but not for 7 days like the books do.
Great. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. This is just a pilot. So, and Suzanne, I see your hand. So we are planning to, if this goes well, expand it to other locations and then uptick the amount that we have based on need. But we're just not sure yet what kind of interest there will be. Suzanne, did I answer your question? Was I prognosticating?
You did. I was just trying to get ahead of you.
No, you're good. It means we're all on the same page. You may be wondering to yourself how helpful the Chromebooks are going to be if someone doesn't have a device at home already, like maybe they don't have internet connectivity or wireless or something like that. There is in Fairfax County, there's about overall 5 to 7% of the population doesn't have internet connectivity at home, but it's certainly more concentrated in other areas and specific zip codes. It can get as high as 20% of the population either doesn't have a device or doesn't have connectivity. So the next step of this that we are still negotiating is circulating hotspots, wireless hotspots for people. We're not quite there yet. So this is just the devices themselves. It doesn't come with any wireless connection. Any other questions about the Chromebooks or anything that you all think would be helpful to include in the talking points for it? Keith.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. I was just thinking, do we have access to, not we, does the population have access to the Wi-Fi, like being outside of schools? Like, I know they can do it outside the library. I did it recently with my daughter's school, but is that, can anyone just use those networks around the county?
So I'm not going to give you 100% answer, but I will follow up and get back. I think that there is some limited connectivity at many of the schools, but I'm not going to say it's at all of them because I don't think they wanted people just hunkering down in a school parking lot.
Yeah, right.
The library, we're like, hey, come hang out, use our internet. But I don't think they had that available at all the schools. I'll double check though, and I'll get back to you.
Yeah, I'd be curious to know if it was like all the public facilities, like across the board.
So the interesting thing, this is a total kind of side topic, but I think it'll be interesting for all of you, and it's on the topic of technology, is the wireless that the library provides on the outside of our building is not meant to be external wireless. It's just a bleed over from our internal wireless.
Right.
So you have to be really close to the building to use it, and the further away you get, the weaker the signal is. So we've been working to actually purposefully install exterior Wi-Fi at our buildings. And the first facility is going to get that installed next week. Once we see how it goes and how many we can get it at, then we'll give you an update about the rollout of that.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome very much. Any other questions on the Chromebooks? No. So the other tech update is that some of you may have used our Ask Your Library services where you can do virtual reference and chat with library staff. It's worked really well so far as a function of a computer or a tablet or a laptop, but starting on March 1st, we will also be offering it via text. So if you are on your phone and looking around, you can text us at the number available here and get real-time answers to your questions. You may not be surprised that many of the questions we're getting right now are around vaccinations and COVID and things that we're not entirely the experts on. So we've also gotten very good at referring people to the most accurate information sites available, but we're hoping that offering this through one more venue will make it easier for anyone who wants to get the information. Erin, did I miss anything on that one? No. Any questions? Sujatha.
This is an actual live chat. It's not a bot. It's an actual person who's and you're able to share like the links and whatever via chat. So
from 10 to 5:45, it's a live chat.
Thank you.
Now, if you can certainly text at like midnight if you want. There's not going to be a person at that time. You will get an auto response, but a ticket will be created so that someone will respond to your inquiry the next time it's staffed.
Yes. Yeah, it goes into like an email queue. So instead of it being a chat, they'll just email you back when they're back in session afterwards.
very cool.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question? What type of questions like are people? I mean, you mentioned, about the virus, but like what other types of questions are people asking?
So it really varies depending on the day and the time. We track them because we want to make sure we can appropriately schedule staff on it for peak times and peak types of questions. And we have both circulation and information staff that answer questions. So some of the questions are about accounts. People want to know how much they've gotten fines, or is their book overdue, or do we have this thing, or how long is the wait list? Those are just kind of general questions. And the information questions really vary. When we were open to the public, because we've been using Ask Your Library for a while now, it just depended on what was happening in the world. So we would get like a little bump up in questions about specific homework assignments when they got closer to being due. Tax season, we would get lots of questions about where can I get the forms? Can I get an extension? It just really varies based on interest and what's going on in the community. Same as at our regular information desks. It's just all over the place.
Do you ever get asked book recs?
Oh yeah. Yeah. So we've got a couple different channels for that, but they get asked everywhere. You know, like somebody's saying like, oh, I've got this book and it's overdue because I'm reading it and I really loved it. So do you have any suggestions for something else that's kind of like that? And then depending on who you get, we have a lot of readers who are staff at the library, and they will overshare with their suggestions, which is good because there's lots of good books out there.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Other questions? Okay, I'm going to go down to the next topic, which is a continuation of a prior talking point, one community, many stories. When we first introduced this topic, it was to share that we were starting a one community, many stories story time. And it was a saved pre-recorded one, and every month it's from a community that's not the predominant community in Fairfax County. So it might be someone from a different background, veterans, people that are differently abled. I think the first one that we shared in January was from someone who had a debilitating disease. And so they shared books and stories that were around the topic. And we're continuing that theme with a committee that we created last year, our Diversity and Inclusion Programming Committee. And their goal is to help us create system-wide programming around different events and celebrations and months, so that it's not quite as piecemeal. We give our branches total autonomy to do all the programming, book talks, displays that they want to do, but we also want to help them set a really strong groundwork so that we've got good stuff at any point in time. And this staff-led committee started off with Black History Month. I sent you all an email with some of the things that were going on. Kwame Alexander is speaking next week, Tuesday or Thursday, I think. We've had a lot of support from the Friends groups, and the events that we've had have covered a wide range of areas. We have a historian that's speaking at the end of next week about the history of Monticello. Wednesday night, we did Harlem art in the Renaissance event. We have Black entrepreneurs that have been talking about starting and maintaining businesses, and a couple different film discussions as well. So it's been really, really successful, and it's nice that we've got good buy-in across the board, that we've got lots of people that want to participate and offer programs. This year, they will also be supporting Hispanic Heritage Month, and I think Pride. And Erin, do you remember what the other one is? There was another one, it's later in the year, but we'll keep giving updates on these. It's been pretty successful so far. You'll also see a link in there to our teen art contest. We asked teens to illustrate people that inspired them, and we are posting them on BibliaBoard, which was another prior talking point. It's a community-driven content site. And I checked, I think Wednesday, and we had put a couple of them up so far. And those kids are so talented. I have zero artistic talent, but they are very, very handy teens out there. So, any questions about our Diversity and Inclusion Programming Committee?
Nope.
Okay. The next one, for those of you who've been on the board for a little bit, this will not be a surprise to you, but for some of our newcomers, every year during National Library Week, we have been offering a Read Away Your Fines program. The past couple of years, before the pandemic, we were offering it in person. So someone would come into the library, they would say, hey, I've got $5 in fines on my account. I'm gonna go sit in that chair over there and read. And every 15 minutes that they sat there and read, we would take $1 off their fines. Because we don't have people in the buildings right now, we're doing it slightly different this year. We're tracking it using Beanstack, which is the application that we used and tested for our winter reading program. So instead of coming into a library, we are doing it on the honor system. And we know that our readers out there are very honorable. So they are going to be able to create an account on Beanstack and mark off when they've read 15-minute increments. So they'll put in the book that they've read, the chapters or pages. They can also write a little book review if they want and stick it in there. We'll see if we get anyone who actually does that. And they can read up to $15 away, which is the same cap that we put on for the Food for Fines program. The last year that we did this, we had, it was about 1,300 in fines that were read away off of people's accounts. So that is a good amount of 15-minute reading increments. And we're hoping we'll have some good success with this program again this year. Any questions about read away your fines?
I have a related question.
Absolutely.
I would like us to do away with fines across the board. And I think there's been some discussion about that, but I've lost track of whether it's possible and what the timeline would be for it.
Sure. So by way of background, I 100% agree with you. Pro getting rid of fines. However, the library's fines that are generated do not come back to the library. They go into the county's general fund. In any typical year, typical, not pandemic year, we generate around $650,000 to $800,000 in fine revenue. That number does include payment for lost books and associated charges. So it's actually a little bit less than that if it's just, I was late on my book, bringing it back. So that's not a tiny chunk of change. And because it's not self-perpetuating, it doesn't come back to us. We need to get county buy-in for it. As part of the budget development process for fiscal year 2021, we made a recommendation to eliminate fines on children and youth materials. And that was the budget that ended up getting tanked because of the pandemic. Children and teen fines for the period that we assessed it totaled about $125,000 over a year. So it seemed like a good stepping stone to get us to a point where we could eliminate all fines. But that was the year when we both got money for expanded hours and then had it taken away because the budget was eventually retracted. So that's kind of where we're at this point. I don't know what the future of these requests is as we continue to go through pandemic budget realities, but it is certainly an equity-driven topic that staff would support eliminating fines as it's appropriate. That's where we're at.
How, in what channel would the board lay the groundwork for getting going on this? I mean, it's not about the money, it's about equity and a lot of people are discouraged from using their public library. So I think looking at it from kind of the One Fairfax and the service point of view, that's got to trump the money. It's not that much money for the county budget. So what would be, if we wanted, if there was interest in the board advocating for this, what would be the channel for doing that?
It's the budget process, because we estimate revenue as part of our annual budget process submittal. If we're going to have some kind of huge drop in the amount of money that we generate on behalf of the county, they need to be aware and process that as well. So if you wanted to start laying the groundwork again, then discussions with your local board members, board supervisors members is appropriate, and getting that queued up so that it's not a surprise if we make the recommendation during the next budget cycle.
I think, okay, but what if it was, and I'm sorry, Brian, I don't mean to hijack the agenda. Let me talk to you offline about this, because I think if it's one of those things where like we each just talk to our supervisor, I think that's one part of it. But when we look at how fast we were able to, not fast, but we were able to move pretty convincingly with that CELA group,
Yeah.
the ad hoc committee.
Yeah.
And so I'm wondering if that committee starts to think about fines.
Yeah.
So
Well,
I'll talk to you offline. Sorry.
that sounds good. And I would be happy to share information with anyone on the committee who would like to move forward on that. There's a really great map that's available from the Urban Library Council that actually shows all the libraries in the United States that are fine-free. And you will see that there's like a little ring around us of everybody that is fine-free.
Thanks.
I will share
Okay.
that. Phil.
I don't have a problem with the concept of getting rid of the fines. My concern would be like if I have a book and, I don't have to pay a fine or something, like, why do I return the book? And it could end up, it's a good concept, but, we're back to like people being somewhat responsible. I would be worried that we would could lose inventory, let's say, if I'm not responsible,
Yeah.
to pay a fine.
Bill, that is an excellent point. And I should clarify. So I'm sorry if I wasn't clear. When we talk about fine free, it doesn't mean that people can keep the books forever. If they keep it for X amount of time and they still don't bring it back, they would need to pay for the book still if they're just going to keep it forever. So there is still some impetus to bring it back, but it's not the kind of punitive process of charging people, kind of nickel and diming them to get our stuff back. Like I will pay fines because I want to keep a book and read it longer. People that want to keep a book longer are going to keep it longer regardless if they want to finish it. The fines being punitive seem to punish certain populations more than others. So.
Mm-hmm. I think, I appreciate the discussion. I think it's something that has to be done. I agree with Jane that maybe the CELA committee could take this on. I mean, it is expanded access to libraries. So this, as well as ours, could be part of the business when we get into business as usual. But I think for this meeting, we don't need to talk any more about it. So why don't you go on with the next point, Jessica?
You got it. So the last point that we have for the set of talking points, we wanted to highlight one of the upcoming events. I may have talked about this already a lot, but it's a good one and we really want to get the word out about it. Kristen Hanna will be speaking on April 22nd. We already have a very healthy group of people ready to enjoy her virtual event. She won't be just talking though. We've really found that these conversational programs online tend to go well, where it's two people talking instead of just one person reading off of a script or going off of a PowerPoint. So she will be in conversation with Tyler Burney, who is a producer in DC. This is one of our annual Fall for the Book events, which is the Northern Virginia Book Festival. And if you want to sign up for this, I'll send around the link again, but it is live on our website, ready to go.
Mm-hmm. Sounds good. I think I have signed up, but I'll have
Excellent.
to check.
Yes, and one of your very own is set up to be our introductory speaker on this. Jane has agreed to introduce Miss Hanna, and I think she might be a little bit excited about it. I don't know that she's got the book ready to kind
Probably
of wave
not
around
at
this
all,
time.
no. like I used to be when that was the best part of being the chair of the foundation, was getting to meet and sit in the green room with these authors ahead of time. I mean, I would,
Well, and with the
it was wonderful.
With many of these events, we offer like a virtual meet and greet for key players. So with donors and things like that. Erin, do you remember, are we doing that for the Kristen Hanna event? Is there a virtual meet and greet?
Nothing that I've heard of for the meet and greet, no.
Okay.
I don't think so.
Yeah. Well, we'll see if we can get it for the next time. Excuse me. So that is all the talking points.
So that's it. Are you going to take this and turn it into an actual talking point paper to give to the board, right, next week for the next?
Yes. Yeah, I'm going to turn these into some bullets for you.
Yeah. Okay. That sounds good. I really like the stuff, and I think we're continuing with it. Are there any other questions about this? If not, we're going to other items, and I'll bring one up if I
have
may.
my hand
Oh,
up.
I'm sorry, Suzanne.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I just wondered if it would be possible, if we had links to any previous programs that have been recorded, to share that with our supervisors in case people missed out on coming to a program. If we could share a link, that would be great.
Okay, so there are a lot of those. Our YouTube content is getting somewhat overwhelming.
Okay.
So is there any like specific topic, or do you think maybe we have a few different playlists, or maybe a link to all of YouTube, our whole channel.
Let's
What
do
do
that
you-
last one, because then
I would
people
say
can
that.
sort through things that, and maybe we can highlight a couple that might be interesting if you'd like. But there's way too many to send
it's a
individual
lot.
links out
Oh,
for.
yeah.
I mean, the real point is to let them know if they missed it, it's not too late.
Right.
For some of
Exactly.
them, they aren't recorded, but
That's
that is always clarified in the event description on the calendar.
Will Kristen Hannah be recorded?
I don't
Um,
think so.
I don't
You-
think a lot of those more high profile people are not recorded.
Okay.
Yeah, we negotiate individually with authors and different event producers, so it depends on what they're willing to do contractually. Some of them will allow us to record it, but only post it for maybe a week. So when we had Rainbow Rowell, she let us post it for a week or two, and then it had to come down. So it just depends on what they negotiate.
I attended a really good one a couple years ago. It was Louise Penny being interviewed by Hillary Clinton at Politics and Prose. And they actually put it up on YouTube, and you can still find it, I believe.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think we
Yeah,
should
I've
give
been to a
Louise
few
Penny
politics
some
and
time.
prose ones. They're good. I was at one Wednesday night. Six and I put on Rashida Jones talking with Bill Gates about his new book. So that was fun. But I think they're going to post that, but that all
Okay.
depends on the contract, right? So, anyway, as far as other items go, when earlier this month, I guess, Jessica put out the note about the Star Volunteer Awards being canceled. I asked her a couple questions offline, and I know that those volunteer awards are not the responsibility of this committee. So, that's obviously true. But it seemed to me that a matter of concern is that volunteers who used to volunteer and do a lot of things, particularly in the case of Friends, may not come back. We don't even know what's going to happen when we finally do open up. So it just seemed to me that this committee might want to start thinking about things we can do when it becomes obvious we're going to be able to open more and wider and have book sales and things like that, to make sure that the people know that we're going to do that, and that their help in the past has been appreciated, and would they consider coming back to help us before we worry about getting new volunteers. So it's just something I thought about, and I would welcome any ideas. I'm sure Jessica would too. Secondly, we talked about, or she mentioned, I think, the party that you're going to have, an event or some sort of a thing for the volunteers in place of the Star Volunteer Awards. And if anybody on this committee would like to help the library with that, staff's going to do it. But she said we would welcome help, right? Is that the way you put it, Jessica?
I think
So
what
if
I said
anybody
is
is interested in that.
everyone is welcome to help with party planning.
Anyway, so again, it's not really an assignment for the outreach committee, but it seems to me, well, hi, Fran, or Bill. Wait, no, it's Fran. Sorry, I was reading the name instead of seeing anything. But okay, well, we're
I think
finished.
that's a great. I think that's a
Oh,
great
kidding,
idea.
kidding.
Like a whole campaign of "We're back."
Yeah,
know?
I think so, and I think the outreach committee can play in that. But if anybody has ideas, certainly I have no great ideas about that. But there are people here who do really cool things. So let us know. Think about it, and if we want to talk about it at the next meeting, we can do that. Does anybody else have any other items they think might be worthwhile for this committee? We went over the talking points already, Fran. And,
Yeah, I came in.
And
I saw some.
did you? I didn't see when you came in.
I came at the very end, but I did
Okay,
see
good.
some of
So
them, and I
you'll-
have the
you'll
printout too.
Get a copy, good.
Yeah, I have.
It
Yeah,
sounds
I
good.
did. Yeah, thank you.
Does anyone else have any other items that they think the outreach committee ought to do? Yes, Sujata.
I just have one question regarding what you just brought up. The
Yes, ma'am.
volunteers, and you don't know who's going to be coming back.
Yeah.
I just had a question, like Fran and I had spoken about the library scholarship, and I was like learning things about what you guys offer and all of that.
Mhm.
And she said that there is a student volunteer, there's a page position which is paid, and then there's volunteers. And I don't know, what is your methodology by which you invite students to volunteer? because I mean, like, as we are looking at, well, maybe like we're vaccinated, but then we have new variants and we don't know what's going to happen. And there's like, we don't really know, right? So it's like, oh, well, and also children are not vaccinated, right? But so we don't know, does that make them safer, less safe? I don't have the answer to that question, but I'm wondering when we open, typically what is the outreach for having kids volunteer?
So just for context, in a normal time frame, we have more than 1,000 volunteers across the system, not including the friends, just straight library volunteers. And they generate enough hours in a given year. I think the last time we counted it pre-pandemic, it was about 40 FTEs worth of time that they put in. So it is not diminuous. It is a lot of time that folks across lots of ages put in. For youth and teen volunteers, we reach out to them in a number of different ways. Many of our youth services staff have direct relationships with their local schools and the librarians there, so they might work with those folks to bring people in. At the end of the year, we also do book talking, where we go into the schools and we promote different books and we lure them in. So that's another venue to connect with teachers and make them aware of volunteer opportunities. A lot of our youth programming volunteers happen during the summer, and they support the summer reading program at branches, either in getting people to sign up or in helping with programs or crafts or things like that. The page positions that you mentioned earlier, they're open to any age. They're not just for students, but they tend to be students because it's 10 or 15 hours a week and the times are variable and things like that. And we often pull from volunteer groups into those paid positions, which is nice.
And you're using pages now, right? I mean, they're staff. So I know some pages I see occasionally when I could get into our branch seem to be working. So
yes, yeah, all of our folks are back in now. We're asking some people to volunteer with our colleagues at the health department. So some folks might be wandering over there soon, but most of our folks are back in the branches. I'm trying to think of other ways that we reach out to students. We post all of our volunteer positions in Volunteer Match and through the county's volunteer opportunity system. So they're all listed there and they have job descriptions. So you can see exactly what you would be signing up to do, what the obligations are.
Jessica's
I think
frozen.
you're frozen. There you go.
No,
You froze
Well,
there.
and I would just add on the, what Sujatha mentioned, the undergraduate scholarships that the foundation has. One of the requirements for kids who get a scholarship, if they are not already affiliated with either working or volunteering as a library, we do have a volunteer hour requirement for them to fulfill. It's really been up in the air during the pandemic, but it's still there. And then the foundation has actually come up with some virtual volunteer duties that they can do. So we will be able to offer that to the kids. I mean, that's a really small pool of kids, but just to fill in that little area too.
That's a good idea. I'm most active, of course, at Burke Center, this picture behind me, and our friends group. We had, I think we were the first library that had a teen club. I don't know, I think Nancy started that, and now it's expanded to other libraries. And those teens helped a lot around the library, the holiday event, this, that, and the other thing. And we use them as friends for our book sales. They help us quite a bit, or did when we actually did that stuff. And we still keep in touch with them, and a couple of them won scholarships.
Well, and I'm glad you brought that up, because the teen, I remember one year, one of the applicants had been on that team group at, I think it was at George Mason, and she came up with suggestions for the English as Foreign Language collection, which was so good that it was, pretty much adopted throughout the system. I mean, and it was really, well, she was terrific.
Yeah, we bring up these teens, in my view, to ultimately be library users, and in many cases librarians, not all go to library science, of course, but I think it's a great thing to do, to reach out to people. The problem we have now is that we just don't have the capability to do that particularly well.
Am I
Any other
unfrozen now?
que- uh,
Hmm?
Oh,
Am I
yes, you are.
unfrozen now?
Yeah,
Okay,
you
good.
only froze when your mouth is open. So,
Ah,
exactly.
Sheila, I think had her
Did you
hand up
raise your
earlier.
hand a minute ago?
I'm gonna pretend to be frozen.
Or Sheila?
Yeah, I was going to say,
Sheila did, okay.
and there were always a healthy number of students from the public schools and some of the church groups and Boy Scouts who needed hours. So, that
Yeah.
we, in my branches, we always had a volunteer coordinator who received all of these students and had special jobs for them, and they would have something like 20 hours or 10 hours or whatever. So I don't think that we've had much trouble bringing students into the library to volunteer.
Yeah.
Plus the teen clubs that are now there. So it's really great. I think that we do a good job.
But I
Just
still
take
think
a,
it'll be a challenge when we get back to allowing them again,
Well-
because now it's been a year or so, and there'll be different teams. Some will go off to college, and that they don't always think of libraries as first on their list. And I think we need to be out there along with all the parks and everybody else who's going to want volunteers when we start opening up. We need to have something available to say, hey,
Absolutely.
if you're interested, you're a book nerd, like me. Come on.
book nerd. I was gonna take a little walk down memory lane when we used to get in the student volunteers, and we would sit them down on a table to stamp date due cards, and it was and I felt so bad for them because it was like, that's a really enriching experience. It's like da 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 da.
I did that in high school.
It was horrible. It was horrible for
Not
everybody.
Horrible, Fran. That was a
It was
great
horrible.
job.
It was horrible.
No,
No one-
I loved that
Nobody
job.
wanted to do
I
it.
Oh, Jaffa wanted to do it.
And getting those
You know,
cards in the
remember
card
you got to, like,
catalog was
You
hell too.
switch the
'cause you had
little
to move
dates on the thing like that, like and the little wheels, and
Well, yeah. Well, I
love
think
that job.
I think that's one of the reasons I became a librarian, because my childhood experience of Miss Shan at the little library, and she had that pencil with that really cool date thing on the end, and I'm like, I want that. How am I going to get that? But I think if we
Okay.
did something like, well, we're back, and we need you, and list some of the fun jobs, the interesting jobs, and we don't
Well-
do date due cards, so we're good.
What I'm hoping for, yes, Sheila. Yeah.
And it's always food.
Oh, yeah.
Always
yeah.
Always
food.
there
Yeah, our friends always buy food
an
for the
afternoon
kids. We actually
volunteer
budget it
there
every year for the
with
kids.
food. I mean, that's the go-to. Yeah.
At any rate, I think if we can, what I'm hoping for is by the next time we have an outreach meeting, we'll maybe have a better idea when we will start opening up. Maybe we'll be partially opened again, Jessica, I don't know. We'll obviously know that as the time approaches, and maybe we can start thinking about, if I could ask you all to kind of think about ways we can reach out to get that community of volunteers, if you want to call them that, back into our libraries. Because again, for the young ones, a lot of them are going to be out of town now. They'll be at college or something. Yes, Sheila.
I just want to tell everybody about this, and I can take no credit for this. This is Jane, but through Jane's community outreach, she has pulled together the most incredible volunteers in Vienna, in Oakton, and in Reston. And within the last 3 weeks, these volunteers have come up with free food. They've gotten from cupcakes at both Reston on Wednesday and I've had my second COVID, and I'm still having side effects. So, but I made my way to Reston to watch this happen. So this wonderful woman, Katie Brown, with her children, she had a big a big sign put outside the Reston Regional Library saying, "We appreciate you," from a sign company here in Reston called Synergy or something. Great big sign. It was only up for 24 hours, which I guess is good because it snowed. And then there was a bakery that delivered hand wrapped, individually wrapped cupcakes with roses for the topping and madeleines. And Ben and Jerry's brought individual ice cream cups that will go in the freezer. Her kids made a big banner why they loved the library. Her oldest, I think, was maybe 11 or 7. I mean, little kids with this beautiful great big sign they made with their, with their little drawings, and there were letters from the community. Jane can talk more about what they did at Vienna, including individual boxed lunches and masks that were, and you'll have to talk about that, Jane. There were masks with a heart that symbolized a community outreach group in Vienna. So they're out there. And and I mean, I personally am astounded at the response and how quickly it came together. Jane can tell about how she tapped into this volunteer group. But I think that I love this idea of pooling our resources and figuring it out to kind of.
Sheila, do you want me to show the video of the sign?
Yes, that'll be great. Yeah, I sent the sign.
Yeah, the sign was cool.
So this is to thank the library staff. Is that correct? Oh, that's nice.
Wow.
Exactly. Yep, there it is.
That's
It was
fabulous.
beautiful. It was beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if maybe I was just telling Miriam this. I don't think I said this during our board meeting, but the day of our January board meeting, Sheila and I had been at Reston, and it was right after the libraries went back to curbside only. And so I was just kind of chatting with their manager and, how's it going? And, what was behind the decision to go back to curbside? What do you know? And so he was just explaining how people were really crabby. Like, there was that weekend, it was kind of sudden that it turned to curbside, and people were not nice to the staff. And that just kind of put me on edge, right? Like, why would you be mean to library staff? I know library staff gets all kinds, but I didn't like that. And I'm tired of the vitriol in general right now. So that just made me edgy. And then at our meeting that night, when we were told that a staff member had been attacked with a table, that was it. I just thought, we cannot have staff they've been under stress this entire time. They're having to relearn jobs or do jobs they're either afraid of or they don't like. They're upset anyway. And to have the public dumping on them and then attacking them is just not acceptable. So in Vienna, we have a group of people, they're called the Vienna Foodies, and it just started as a group to recommend restaurants. And then when the pandemic started, they started to cheerlead and remind our neighbors, go do business with this restaurant, they need your business. So it's just taken off into this whole thing where people like to hire a restaurant to then provide lunches to first responders or staff at the hospital. So that's who I contacted was, hey, you guys, I know everyone loves the library. Anyone want to do anything? And I mean, really, it was overwhelming. And so through that conversation online, we got the volunteers for Oakton and Reston as well. So it's an unusual thing. Board members should not be or feel responsible for doing things like this. This was just this just stuck in my craw, and I knew that there were people in the community who really liked doing this. So I simply asked them. So, I mean, it was wonderful. And I think the staff, Oakton is next week. So Patrick Henry and Reston staff, I think we're pretty happy just to know that
let me tell you, the Reston staff were, they were so genuinely happy. And Mike invited us into the building, even though they're closed. And you saw them standing there posing, and there were some people who were in info that weren't part of, a lot of those were the CERC staff, but they were so excited. It was, I think they were bowled away. And I was outside waiting, and our patrons sit in their cars, they call, they wait. And then when the door opens and the staff member comes out and puts the baggie on the table, they get out of the car and they run and they grab it and they sit back in the car, and the poor staff are running in and out, and they've been inside, and then they have to put their coats on, they have their masks on. They have a very difficult job. And they're smiling even though you can't see their faces. In fact, I don't think I would if I met Mike, our new branch manager, I don't think I'd meet him. I'd know him in the grocery store or on the street because I've only seen his eyes, but they were delighted. I think they couldn't believe it. And to see all those Ben and Jerry's ice creams waiting for them in the Madelines, and then the little notes. I did bring a thank you note personally, and I think that's something that we definitely could do as board
So
members.
one of the greatest things about this project that you all have taken on is that we haven't told staff it's happening. So it's
Yeah.
other than the manager, it's a surprise.
Yeah,
And I was chatting with staff after the Reston one. And when they drove into the parking lot, they drove past the sign and they would come inside and they were just so tickled. Like, where did the
Yeah.
sign come from? And who put it up? And what's going on? And it was very, very sweet. And I see that Erin has her hand raised. I don't know if it was still on this topic or not.
It was still on this topic. So this is the first I'm hearing of this. So I have two requests. One, could someone send me the photos and videos and whatever exists from the Reston one? And two, could someone send me the details for any other of these, so that I am aware?
I'll send you the
Very good.
pictures and the video. I don't know about anyone other than the Oakton one scheduled right now.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll connect you with the volunteer who's doing Oakton.
That would be very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, and what was interesting was like the woman who did Reston, she needed to do this. Like it helped her personally. She has 3 little kids at home. She is an advocate for people who are homeless and hasn't been working and has just been stressed out with the pandemic. And she wanted something to pour her heart into. And the same thing with the volunteer for Oakton. I mean, she is a big community volunteer anyway, but I was surprised to hear that this was helping other people in the community by asking them to do something. So.
Okay. Very good. Thank you. Are there any other items, so to speak? No? Okay, Fran, since you are our supreme queen and chair of the board and all and visitor, do you have anything that you would like to ask outreach to think about or do or not? No. Okay.
No, nothing on my mind.
Okay, thank you. And Jessica, do you have anything to
Well, I'm gonna have to make Fran a sash now that says Supreme Queen.
Get on that.
I'm ready. It's
You
my
don't have to put that
project
in
for the weekend. I'll have Hannah.
I have my
She
crab
does have the
mallet.
She's got the hammer. Okay, well then I will entertain a motion to adjourn and thank you all for coming.
So moved.
Bill,
Second.
moved. Suzanne, second. All in favor? Everybody else, I presume. Okay, thank you very much. And thanks, Jessica, for standing by on the off chance I couldn't make it.
Nice weekend.
Right.
Have a great
Everybody.
weekends.
Have a good
Enjoy the
weekend.
no snow.